What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Slam podcast. I am your host, Baho. First and foremost, I wanted to apologize for being gone for so long. I think my last upload was like 2 months ago, maybe even longer than that. It feels like it's been forever. And I know some of you guys are probably asking, what have I been up to? Well, I've been pretty busy with my personal life. Some things happened, and I've just been kind of just building personal relationships and, alongside with some other family things that have happened. But I won't dive too deep into that because obviously, it's my personal life. So I'm just going to leave it there. So I've been getting a lot of really good feedback from you guys, and thank you guys so much for listening to my podcast. I just do it in a small little desk in my room, and that's all I have. But sometimes all you need is a small setup, and you don't need anything too fancy or expensive. But I've been getting a lot of really good feedback from you guys, and it just makes me so happy. People really, really enjoy the podcast and they give me constructive criticism. And people said that they noticed that in the beginning, I really stuttered a lot, and I said, quite a bit. That's very true. I did, and I noticed that too. But like with everything, it takes time to get better at it. So really, doing my podcast is also a way for me to practice on how I connect with people, how I communicate with people, how I don't know, kind of maybe even communicate with myself, because it's kind of like I'm talking to myself. So I have to be very aware of how I sound, not only to me, but also to you guys too, obviously, to the audience. But one thing about what people said about my podcast that stands out the most is that most people love the ghost story episode. So that is by far my most popular episode, not by views, but by likes. And that tells me a lot about the content that you guys like to listen to. However, I don't want to tell too many ghost stories just because there is a certain, there's a Hmong ghost storyteller on YouTube. And he said in one of his videos that a little after he started telling Hmong ghost stories, he started to experience things in his house. I'm not sure if he saw things, but I'm like, bruh, that is some shit that I do not want to experience right now, okay? I've seen some shit, and I don't want to see more shit than I already have. Because it's like, when you tell ghost stories, your audience isn't really just the only people or only things that are listening to you sometimes. There could also be other things out there that are listening to you, and when they know that you're talking about them, right? And so it's like hey, I'm not trying to run into that kind of problem. So that's why I kind of like lean back a little bit for, the thought of telling ghost stories on my podcast. I'm kind of leaning back on it a little bit. I do have a few ghost stories that I do want to tell. There is one very compelling ghost story that I have heard a long time ago when I was a teenager, and that was like many, many years back. And it's one of those stories where you're like, oh shit, like this stuff is real. There is another side after death. There really is the paranormal, and there's certain aspects about that story where you say, there's no way that this person could know about this unless the dead person told them, because like somebody's getting followed, and then somebody else says, hey, well, you're getting followed because this ghost person told me that they've been following you ever since this place. And then the other person's like, well, how did you know? It's like how the hell did you know that I was at this place? So it's a story that's like that, and you're just like, holy shit. And, my friends have plenty of ghost stories. My family, plenty of ghost stories. Me, myself, personally, I don't have a lot of ghost stories, but, I've seen things, but just not in a high quantity compared to other people, so I'm very thankful for that. So in the future, I do want to say that I am looking forward to sharing more ghost stories from friends and family, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys are going to get a kick out of that. I know that there's some audience members who don't like listening to ghost stories because it's too scary for them. Um, and that's okay, because I have other content that you guys can listen to. So, good thing it's not strictly just a paranormal podcast. So let's talk about what I've been doing for the past couple months, just a little bit. So, I actually got asked to go to adult prom, right? And so the story behind that is that my date, we knew each other in high school, and I asked her to prom back in 2012 when I was a junior and she was a sophomore. Before prom could happen, things didn't work out. And so we didn't go to prom together. And I skipped out on prom back then because just like the word prom was so painful to hear because I was supposed to go with them. But obviously things didn't work out back then. So fast forward 10 years later, at the age of 27, she asks me if I want to go to adult prom with her. And at this point, we've been talking for quite a while already. And I said, absolutely. I've been waiting so long to get a second chance with you. 10 years in the making. Guys, a whole last decade. Like, who waits a whole decade for somebody? Me, I do. Tell you that. And I was so ecstatic. I was just the happiest man in the world. And so, of course, I said yes. Because I think prom is such an important thing for most youths. To be able to experience an event like that, and some people fall in love for the first time, and you're experiencing so many things for the first time. It's high school. I miss high school. And prom is one of those events where you definitely want to experience it because you don't really get a second chance to experience it again. But luckily enough for me, I got that second chance. Second chances do happen. Could be 5 years from now, could be 7, could be 10, like me. And so we went out of state to go to prom. And this prom event was 300 attendees with live performances, and it was also on a yacht. And it was a huge yacht. I think there was four levels on it. But everything was happening on the 3rd and the 4th, I believe. So we get to the docking area, right? And there's so many people there. So we park pretty far, and then we walk all the way over to the yacht. And there's already a long line ahead of us. We get inside, and we get ID'd, because I think it was a 21 plus only event. They were serving alcohol too. It's adult prom, for God's sake. So obviously, my date and I, we check out the top floor, and we leave the dock at like 7:15 p.m. and we're still on top. Not even an hour in to prom, one of the event organizers, I believe, or one of the guys in charge of it, he comes up to the top and grabs the microphone and he says, "All right, guys, so I just got word that there is a minor on the 3rd floor who's causing a ruckus, and he's really drunk. So the captain gave me 2 options. Either we can take him back to the dock, drop him off, and continue the party, or we can keep him here, try to calm him down. But if he causes a scene again, the sheriffs will have to get involved and shut down the party." And everybody was just like, "Fuck that, drop his ass off." I was one of them too. I was just yelling. I'm like, drop his ass off. Drop his ass off. We don't need him here. Drop him off. Ain't nobody there trying to deal with some dumbass minor trying to fuck up the party. Everyone's just there to have a good time, right? So we turn around. Good thing that we weren't really far from shore. So I think it only took us like 30 minutes to get there. We drop his ass off, and 4 squad cars showed up, and they walked all the way to the yacht, and it's a little far too. We're all leaning over the top of the of the yacht, and so mind you, we're still on the top level. I'm like leaning way over, grabbing onto like the railing. I'm like, okay, where is this fucking kid? So like his girlfriend and I think like somebody else drags his ass out of the yacht, and then he's so drunk that he can't even stand up. So his girlfriend or whatever is holding him up by the arms so he doesn't fall flat on his face. And then when the sheriffs, well, I don't think they were sheriffs, but the guy said they're sheriffs. I'm pretty sure they're just, regular cops, I guess. Whatever you call them. Each cop goes on his side and they grab him from under the arms and they drag him all the way to their squad car and then take his ass back. I'm just like, dude, the party hasn't even started. It's only been an hour. How is this guy so messed up already? But I'm thinking that he probably pre-gamed before he came to the party. Also, the question is, how the hell did he even get on board? Because we were all ID'd. I'm thinking that he had a fake ID or something, or had somebody else's ID, or if that guy's a ninja of some kind, maybe he snuck in. Who the hell knows? But thank goodness that we dropped his ass back off, because ain't nobody trying to deal with that, okay? Everyone's just trying to have a good time. So the night goes on, and the drinks were so expensive, guys. Like, I bought a couple Coronas. I think each Corona was like $6. And shots, oh my god, shots were $11. So my date and I, we drank Hennessy all night. And I'm pretty sure that Hennessy was watered down. The shots they pour are really big too, so you get about the equivalent of 2 shots in 1 shot cup. We were on the top floor at the bar, and then we ordered 2 shots of Hennessy, one for me, one for her. Downed it. I'm like, okay, this isn't enough. So I'm like, hey, you want to drink another one? And she goes, sure. So we buy another round of Hennessy. We drink that one right away too. So, you're looking at the equivalent of like 4 shots right now, just about. The night goes on, and I'm like, I'm not feeling the Hennessy at all. So I'm pretty sure that they watered down that liquor, or in Minnesota, their alcohol content be a little lower than Wisconsin, so you already know what's good, because that Hennessy was not hitting, man. With Minnesota Henny, anything ain't possible. But man, that was such a fun night. Just being able to get a second chance like that to go to prom, especially with somebody who has been on your mind for so long too. I mean, mind you, this is 10 years, no joke. It was definitely one of the best things to have happened to me this year. Being able to be a kid again and experiencing it for the first time when I should have experienced it so many years ago. Second chances definitely do exist. Not everyone is as lucky as me. Not everyone gets that chance, but I'm glad to say that I did. I'm not sure how busy I'm going to be for the next couple weekends. I know that honestly I'm just making excuses right now, and I know that I'm not fully putting my heart into my podcast. Like, I know that I can work on my podcast every single night after work, and I can write and then rest, and then I can write the next night and then rest, and then just keep doing that until the weekend hits, and then I already have an entire script or something written out for the next episode. But I'm not doing that, because honestly, when I get off work, I just need to completely brain dump everything. So perhaps mentally I'm not all there to fully dedicate myself to this podcast. I think the last, whatever episodes that I did before, it was kind of like pilot episodes, I would say. You're kind of testing the audience, testing the waters, just seeing how well you'll do, and based off of how well you do, maybe you'll continue it, maybe you won't. But I think for me, regardless of how well I do, I'm going to keep doing it because I think it's really fun to do a podcast. So then it begs the question, what is the future of the podcast? I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure if I can keep doing weekend uploads, but with things like this, you need to have a set schedule for your audience because your audience is expecting something out of you, and I totally get that. And I do apologize for not meeting you guys' expectations. But I do have a lot of more scripts written out, and it can probably, be like a good 4 or 5 episodes worth of scripts that I have written out. And these episodes will be, well, it may be divisive because I do have my viewpoints about things. So it's kind of like things like that I want to touch upon and really make people think. Because I try to look at things in the most logical way without involving my feelings. Something may not make me feel good, but that doesn't mean that it isn't true or that it is wrong. You can definitely feel bad about something even if it's the right thing to do. Anyways, I'm getting way too deep into that, so I'm going to leave that for future episodes, okay? And going back to what I want to do with my podcast, I really want to bring on guests, but there's a lot of people who are really afraid to come onto my podcast, and I always tell them, I'm like, guys, you're just having a normal conversation with me, and I understand that the microphone and the camera and everything can be a little intimidating, but don't just don't let it intimidate you. It's just me, it's just you, maybe somebody else, maybe it's a whole group, who knows. So people do tend to be intimidated by the camera and the microphone, which I guess I get it because I'm really used to being on the mic, on the camera, things like that. I record, guitar videos, singing videos. I used to make comedy videos way back in the day, and so I grew up used to it. So definitely want to get a lot more guests on here. One of the things is I really need to find a good place to do my podcast. Either that or I'll be like a traveling podcaster, going to people's houses and bringing my whole setup with me and setting up in their house. I mean, it's not a crazy setup. It's super, super simple. But I mean, that's what I've been doing anyways. Like my last episode with my best friend, I just went over to his house, had a couple beers, and set up in his basement. But if you guys have any feedback for me, if there's anything that you guys want to see, anything you guys want me to talk about, please let me know. I'm an open book. I'm willing to talk about anything, give my stance on anything. And as always, thank you so much to everybody who has stuck with me all this time, who has been patient. I know it's been a really long time. Thank you for all the views, all of my subscribers. You guys are the best. And I will see you guys again on another episode of the Let's Slam podcast. Peace.